Today I'm going to create a coffee roasting profile and then roast the coffee. I'm going to use the same approach and the same processes that I introduced in my previous video. You'll hear me talking through every step from beginning to end, and then we'll taste the coffee. This is the second video in my profile series, and in my intro video I talked about what a profile is and how to know what profile to use when roasting coffee. I encourage you to watch that video, as this is a stepping stone series. Also, stick around till the end because I've got some news and some helpful resources for you. So my approach isn't the only way, and it isn't the best way or the right way. So if you're already creating a coffee roasting profile and your approach is different, share that please in the comments. That would be awesome. I would really appreciate to see that, and I'm sure it would be helpful for others. In my previous video, I mentioned that I'd be roasting on 2 different machines. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do that. It's just too much to try to cover. So we're going to be using the Kaleido M2 today. All the concepts and the processes are basically the same, regardless of the type of roaster that you're using. Also, I promised you that I'm going to be filling out the coffee roasting worksheet. I'm going to start doing that now. There's a link in the description if you want to download one for free. Okay, so here's the coffee. It's a Honduras coffee. And this is from the Captain's Coffee. It is a Honduras Came Agua Finca El Conejo Pacamera. This is a coffee that has some delicious tasting notes, including raspberry, some creamy notes. There's a fig note in there, as well as some fruit and caramel and milk chocolate notes, along with a gentle floral undertone throughout the coffee. So it sounds absolutely delicious. I reached out to the Captain's Coffee and asked David if he'd be willing to donate this coffee for my profile series. He graciously said yes. And so I'm just being transparent and letting you know that he's giving me this coffee to use here for the channel, and I didn't have to pay him for any of this. I am free to express my opinions about the coffee. And yeah, so David, thank you so much for sponsoring this video series at the Captain's Coffee. I'll put a link down in the description if you're interested in learning more about this coffee. Okay, so here we are. We've got the farm information we're going to be looking at now. I've never roasted this coffee before, so the first thing that I want to do is measure for density. And you should check out my video on density and learn more how to do that. It's a really important step because it's going to help us understand this coffee. So after weighing it, I calculated the density of this coffee to be 758. That's my number. It's a high density coffee, and it's going to help me understand how to treat this coffee. I'm taking a closer look at the center line of the bean. It's very tight. It's a large size bean. All of this tells me that this is going to need more heat to be applied to the bean, and because it's high density, it'll be able to handle that heat. The other information that's helpful to know is the altitude. That kind of confirms my density. It's a 1,550 meters above sea level, so that confirms that it's a high density. It's a washed coffee, and it's also a late November arrival, so it's pretty fresh coffee as well. All right, let's stop here for just a second and answer 2 questions. First, why bother with this worksheet? I mean, this worksheet is going to force me to engage in my roast. It's going to cause me to plan ahead, and it's going to require me to control my roaster, the temperatures over time. And that's good. That's a good thing. That's why I'm doing this. All right, second, how do I know what temperatures and times to apply? Well, based on your experience and my experience. So in my last video, I asked you to write down how long it takes for you to safely dry your coffee without roasting defects. How long is your typical total roast time? So I got to think of these things as well. And those answers are going to be based on our experiences with our roasters. As I mentioned in my video, we're all going to have different machines, different environments, different beans, in different roast levels. So it's important for you to know your machine, your coffee, and your tasting preferences. Now let's complete the worksheet with my times and temperatures information. I'm going to be roasting 300 grams of this high-density Honduran Pacamera washed coffee, and it's going to take me anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes to roast this coffee. So I'm going to start with a 9:45 total roast time. It's not a short roast time. It's not a long roast time. My roaster should be able to be completely capable of roasting the coffee in that time. Because it's a high density coffee, it can handle the heat that I'm going to pour on during the roast. The bean size is large, so maybe a little extra power will be needed. Because it's a washed coffee, the color should be helpful, knowing the roast progress. And so here are my target times and temperatures for each of the main events. Dry is going to be at 4:30, first crack is going to be at 8 minutes, and drop is going to be at 9:45. That means that my roasting times in each phase should be 4 minutes and 30 seconds to get the coffee dry, 3 minutes and 30 seconds to spend enough time in Maillard to form flavors and move the coffee to first crack, and then 1 minute and 45 seconds to develop the coffee and balance the cup without fast-moving increasing temperatures in this phase. That's really important, and we're going to talk about that. In order for me to roast this profile, I need to preheat my roaster and plan for a charge temperature of 190 C or 374 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll probably start with about a 70% power and charge and see what happens. This should give me enough momentum to achieve my roast profile, and I know this because I'm familiar with my roaster performance, and this is a high density coffee and I'm familiar with that. My goal isn't to roast the origin flavors out of this coffee. I don't want an acid bomb, but I don't want a roasty cup. These are personal preferences, so for you guys it might be different, but that means if I follow my profile and drop my coffee at a reasonable temperature that I know is going to give me origin notes with no roastiness, based on my experience with high density coffees, I need to be at a drop temperature of anywhere between 189 and 194 C. So I'm going to aim for 193 C. This should land me at a medium to medium light roast with a moisture loss between 13 to 14%, I think. We'll talk about how to do this as we roast. All right, so I'm going to start with the air set at about 20%, but plan to get up to 50 to 60% by the end of the roast. I want a clean cup, so I don't want to have smoke in the chamber. I want to move that smoke out, and also the chaff as well. Drum speed of about 80% should give me good bean movement, loosen the chaff, and reduce roasting defects. It's also going to help me for convective heat transfer. I kind of went through it quickly, so if you need to go back and reference it, go ahead and do that. But I shared all of these things because these are the things that I think about when I'm roasting coffee, when I'm preparing to roast coffee, when I'm putting my plan together in what I want to have happen in the cup. It's great when we first start roasting coffee to just throw beans in the roaster, turn the switch on, and then rush to first crack. That's kind of fun. It's exciting to be able to do that. But after a while, you want to improve your coffee, and I'm showing you how you can go from coffee that's better than store-bought coffee to coffee that's really good, that is equal to some of the best coffee shops that you go to. So that's what this is all about. That's why I'm sharing this detail with you, and hopefully you'll think about some of the things that I'm sharing with you. All right, so let's get the roaster warmed up and we'll get this roast started. Okay, I've preheated the roaster to 190 C as we have according to our plan. Roaster's been warming up now for a good half hour, so we're ready to go. Again, this is a Kaleido M2. This is a 400 gram roaster, and I'm roasting 300 grams of coffee. And I will occasionally throw up my roasting plan so you can kind of see where I'm at as we go along with this roast. Artisan is going to be logging this roast, and I will go ahead and share this roast with you. It'll be in my extras area of my Buy Me a Coffee section. It'll be for free, so you'll be able to download it. And again, the temperatures and those types of things, this is geared towards my roaster. So if you have a different roaster, your temperatures and your times may vary. All right, let's get going. Okay, we're getting ready to charge. And there we go. We charge, and we're at 189.8. So we're really right on target at 190 C. And the first thing that I want to do as soon as I get the coffee in the roasters, I want to be sure that I've got my power set so I can start to see temperatures begin to climb. Naturally, they're going to drop because the beans are room temperature and they've just been put into a hot roaster, and so we're seeing the effect right now. That red line, that downward trend, that's the bean temperature, but in a minute or so that's going to hit a point where it turns and starts to head upward. That's called turning point. Air roasters don't really have that. Drum roasters, this is a thing. So we're just about at turning point, and I do have positive temperatures. I do have positive temperature increase, and I can tell that by the blue line that's increasing. Now, I made a temperature adjustment. I planned to use 70%, but as soon as I put the coffee in, I bumped it to 75%, but eventually I'll bump it back down. And I want to get this the roaster temperature in an operating range that I know is going to get my coffee dry by 4:30. Okay, you can see the rate of rise just skyrocketing right now, and we're going to peak out around anywhere between 22 and 26 for my rate of rise, and we'll see how high that gets here. We're already at 20, and it's going to get to the very top of the data screen here. We're at 22, and then it'll start to work its way downward. And I want to talk to you about that because it's really important. So here we are. We're almost at our peak. We're at 23, 24.5, and 24.6. I think that's it. Yeah, so that's going to be our peak, 24.6. So why is this important? Why does this matter? Well, one of the things I've been talking about is becoming familiar with our own roasting devices, right? So for this drum roaster, I just shared the range of where this rate of rise is going to peak for a typical roast size like this. And now what I want to do is between this very moment and dry end, I want to get the rate of rise to a point where it's not going to be so high that I have a super steep descent from dry end to first crack. These are things that I'm thinking about. So I'm thinking about the length of time that I'm going to need to spend between dry end and first crack. And in order for me to get my 3.5 minutes that I have according to my plan, I need to make sure that that rate of rise, that's the blue line that is headed downward, that is somewhere around 15 when we get to dry end. And then at first crack, I'm going to want that to be somewhere or anywhere between 5 and 10 for my rate of rise. So these are targets, these are waypoints for me to kind of be aware of as I'm roasting coffee. I just did a quick glance to see if I saw any change in the bean color, and we are a couple of minutes, 2.5 minutes. Let me just adjust my monitor here. We're 3.5 minutes into the roast, and we do have some color change. We're seeing some paleness of the beans. So we went from a dark green to kind of a lighter colored green. So I've got about a little less than a minute now, and I know that this drying process is already starting to happen. And we can look at our temperatures here and see that we're at 150 degrees. Beans are starting to look yellow, and we will see the yellow take place here shortly. My target was 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and we're going to see if we can hit that. We're at 4:10 right now, and we're going to take another look here. This is a time where we're going to have opportunities to make changes to our energy settings during this dry phase without really a whole lot of impact on the roast, really no impact on the flavor at all. All right, so it's 4:30 and coffee's not quite ready yet, so I missed my original target time of 4 minutes and 30 seconds, but we're real close, and I marked the dry end event at 4 minutes and 40 seconds. 4 minutes and 40 seconds. So that's okay. I'm 10 seconds late. You know, this is the first time I've roasted this coffee, and so I'm still more or less on track with my roast. And now my next target temperature or target time is going to be the 8-minute first crack event. By the way, look at my rate of rise. That looks to be around 15, which is exactly where I want it to be when we just finish the dry process and start working towards first crack. So that's a good thing. I'm in control of my roast. That's a very good thing. Now, one of the things I want to be sure I talk about today, and we're going to be talking about this as we get to first crack, is in order to get a light roast, you're going to need lower temperatures. So I have people ask me, Mike, how do you do a light roast? Do you just shorten the development time? Well, yeah, you can shorten the development time, but in this roast, I want a fully developed coffee. I want like a 20% development, but I want low temperatures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my rate of rise, the temperature increase during that phase, is low. I don't want it to be fast moving. I want it to be a slow moving time in development that will keep my temperatures down. And you'll see that hopefully happen here as we are working our way towards first crack, which is going to happen in about a minute and a half. So far, things are looking really good. It's going according to my plan. You'll notice that, and I'm showing here my power steps and my air steps. You'll see me make adjustments to the power and the air along the way. I have been increasing my air movement, which is increasing the heat transfer from just conduction to convection, primarily convection with conduction. That is going to help move this roast along. It's going to give me a nice even roast. And I'm also adjusting my power so that my rate of rise will get to the zones that I need it to be for each of my milestone events. So we're less than a minute away from first crack, and things are going according to plan. My rate of rise right now is about 8, and that is pretty close to where I was anticipating to be, but I've still got 45 seconds. So what you're going to see here, and this is a trick, or this is a method to have a lower temperature and temperature for your coffee without without an underdevelopment, right? So we got full development like I was talking about earlier. So the trick is that your angle of descent on your rate of rise, that line, and I'll draw a line here for the video so you can see what I'm talking about, is going to change. The angle is going to become more shallow during the development phase. So here we are. I'm listening for cracks, and first crack has just occurred at 8 minutes. So that's exactly where I wanted to be. I'm in good control of the roast, but now I need to shallow my rate of rise decline, not make it go flat, but shallow it. And that's what I'm doing here through adjustments with my temperatures. I'm not continuing to go down and down, but I'm toggling back and forth to try to get some descent without just crashing the coffee. And so now you're going to see a shallower rate of rise take place. That is the key to working with light roasted coffee that's 10 minutes long. Now, if I had an 8-minute roast, and I think I did this a few videos back with an air roaster, I had a descent that was just, it was a short roast, and it was a constant downward trend. That was a great roast, but it wasn't like a fully developed roast, right? It was a light roast coffee, worked out really well. It's just a different approach, primarily because it's an air roaster, but also because of the way that I wanted to roast that coffee. This coffee, I want full development. And now look, you can see that shallow rate of rise taking place, still downward trend. We're at 2.5 about right now, or 2.8 on rate of rise. And I'm really happy with this roast. We got about 30 seconds left before we drop it. We're on plan. Look at the bean temperature, that curve. That curve is really important because this is what we pay attention to when we create profiles. It's not just about rate of rise. It's about temperature increases and really the curve over the timeline, right? Temperatures over time. That's what it's all about. And here we go, getting ready to drop the coffee. And there we go. The coffee is dropped, chute is opened, and it smells absolutely delicious. The beans really swelled up, but the roast looks really nice. I'm really happy with it. All right, it's been about a week since I roasted this coffee, and I've been enjoying it all week. We're going to get to the tasting notes in just a second here, but I want to talk about my roasting plan, and I want to talk about the actual roast itself on the roasting log that we're looking at. So Originally I had all of this written down on my plan, and I tried to follow that the best I could, but I didn't do it perfectly. So I was 10 seconds late for my dry time, and ultimately that 10 seconds caused me to have a shorter middle phase. So I hit my first crack time at exactly 8 minutes, but in reality, even because I met that first crack time and I was late on my dry, that middle phase was 10 seconds shorter than I originally wanted it to be. So could that affect the taste? It may have affected the taste a little bit. Could some of us have noticed that? Maybe some of us yes, maybe some of us no. I'm not sure. And as far as the development goes, I originally had planned on an 18% development, dropping the coffee at 9:45. I don't know what I was thinking, but I went till 10 minutes to drop the coffee, and I got a development time of 20%. I kind of had full development on my brain when I was talking, and for whatever reason, I was thinking that while I was roasting the coffee, and it is what it is. But I think because of the slightly shorter middle phase and the slightly longer development phase, the cup still balanced out. It was a delicious cup. I tasted the milk chocolate. I tasted the caramel. I tasted raspberry. I had some family members taste some juiciness and some plum. It's just a very, very enjoyable coffee. 13.5% moisture loss. I weighed it out. Here you can see me weighing it out. You can see the color of the beans. The color was really nice. For me, again, I mentioned I wanted a medium to a slightly lighter side of medium, and I believe this is exactly where I got. And I can verify that through the drop temperature, which was 190, what was it, 190 C, 191.8 C, I think it was. You'll see it here on the screen. Even though I was a couple degrees lighter, that's okay. The coffee just tasted well developed. It tasted delicious, but it didn't taste roasty, and it didn't taste super acidic either. It was just a nicely balanced cup. So I've really enjoyed it. So what would I do differently? How would I do this differently? Well, I think if there were some things I didn't like in the cup, then I would definitely try to make some changes. I may try to follow this roasting plan again and see if I can taste the difference. I think it's going to be difficult for me to taste any significant difference, for sure. There may be some subtle differences. But the question is, if we wanted to change this up, how would we change this profile? If we wanted a darker roast or a lighter roast, what would we do to our roasting profile to accomplish that? And so we're going to be moving in that direction in our next video here in this series, and we'll see where this takes us using the same coffee. So that'll make things really interesting. And then we've got another coffee that we'll end up moving to and trying as well. Hope that you guys, what you saw caused you to think, and if you have questions about what you saw, I would encourage you to ask those in the comments. Ask away. If you've got some suggestions, make some suggestions. That's all good as well. The news, I'm planning on getting an Alio bullet and doing some roasts on the Alio bullet in the near future here. I've got a roasting friend that's going to be sharing his bullet with me. That's Lou. So thanks, Lou. And then the other item I wanted to share is the profile. This profile that I just roasted, I'm going to upload to my Buy Me a Coffee page. I have some free extras there. I have the coffee roasting worksheet. I have an Ethiopian dry process A-log file, artisan A-log file that I've been sharing, and it's free. And I'm going to be doing the same thing with this Honduran coffee here. That profile is going to be uploaded. So all you need to do is go to the description here of the video. There'll be a link that takes you to my Buy Me a Coffee page. The extras, you'll land on there and you'll see the things that are free. So thank you so much, you guys, for joining me today. Share your thoughts in the comments. I appreciate you being here, and I hope you have a great week roasting. We'll see you next time. Take care.